It started with a flight she never took. Elena Morales stood at Gate 17 of the Lisbon International Airport, clutching a worn leather bag and a plane ticket she would never use. The departure board blinked. Flight 402 to Rio de Janeiro, on time. But Elena wasn't going anywhere. She had arrived 3 days before, fleeing a storm of problems, a bitter divorce, a stolen passport, and a restraining order that kept her from re-entering the apartment she'd once called home. She had no family to call, no one to wire her money, no embassy that could guarantee a quick fix. So she sat and waited, and then never left. Day 1. Elena cried quietly near a vending machine. She told an airport attendant she was waiting for someone. That someone never showed up. Day 4. She learned which restrooms were cleaned most often, which janitor didn't mind her using the employee microwave, and which corner behind the long-forgotten luggage carousel was the warmest at night. Week 2. The security guards started calling her a fixture. They didn't question her anymore. Passengers thought she worked there. She started helping lost tourists for spare change. Elena became invisible, but she was everywhere. She knew when the perfume counter restocked samples. She made friends with a baker in the pastry stand who gave her leftover croissants each night. A retired pilot slipped her newspapers. An airline hostess gave her a scarf one winter. She kept a toothbrush in the family restroom. She journaled on receipts. She found freedom in the space between departure and arrival. But it wasn't easy. Some nights she curled beneath a metal bench with a hoodie over her eyes and prayed not to be stepped on. She developed a cough from the cold tile floors. She counted how many people walked past without looking at her. Sometimes hundreds. She began to forget what sunlight felt like. Month 6. A small girl dropped a drawing in her lap. It showed Elena as a guardian of the airport with wings made of flight schedules. She smiled for the first time in days. Year 1. Elena spoke 4 languages fluently: Portuguese, Spanish, English, and French. She became a silent translator for confused travelers. She kept her mind sharp by reading every book in the duty-free bookstore while pretending to browse. The clerk knew, but said nothing. Year 2. A documentary filmmaker passed through, noticed her, and returned weeks later with a camera. "I've heard whispers about the woman who lives between terminals." Elena refused to be filmed, but she offered tea from a stolen lounge bag and said, "This isn't a story. This is just my life." Year 3. The airport became her city, her rhythm, her survival. She began journaling again, this time with more purpose, writing down stories of people she met, travelers on the edge of tears, staff too tired to care, children who saw her as part of the landscape. She collected their stories, wove them into fiction, made herself the heroine of invisible adventures. It gave her structure. It gave her hope. Year 4. People began to notice, not just travelers or staff, but journalists, advocates, a woman from a legal nonprofit who specialized in stateless individuals. Elena was, for all legal purposes, a ghost. Her ex-husband had reported her missing. Her documents had expired. Her existence was paper thin. But slowly, she rebuilt. A young flight attendant named Sophia, who once cried to Elena after a terrible breakup, returned with a binder. Inside, papers. A pro bono lawyer had taken Elena's case. A judge had ruled in her favor. She would be granted. She could leave. Elena didn't move. Not at first. She walked through the terminal slowly. She said goodbye to the tiles she knew by heart, the blinking lights, the announcements in 5 languages, the scent of jet fuel and cinnamon buns, her strange cathedral. And then, for the first time in 5 years, she stepped outside. The sun hit her face like a blessing. Today, Elena Morales runs a support network for displaced women across Europe. She calls it Terminal Grace. She visits airports to share her story. And every now and then, she sits quietly by a gate, just to remember. Because sometimes, the place that held you captive was also the only place that let you breathe. If this story moved you, subscribe to Resilient Stories, because survival doesn't always come with applause. Sometimes it begins with a bench and a choice to stay.